Pues en el laboratorio. A ver, wow, son muchas cosas, de muchos años. Sí, la verdad no es muy agradable, pero cuando teníamos problemas con alguien del laboratorio vecino, le echábamos en el cubo donde se pone el líquido para limpiar el suelo beta-mercaptoetanol. Por lo tanto, cuando fregaban el suelo con beta-mercaptoetanol, el olor era insoportable en el laboratorio. Y huele muy feo.
그 아들이 오티스 데피션시를 앓고 있었어요. 근데 이제 제네틱 테스팅을 통해서 뮤테이션을 밝혀주고 산전 진단을 통해 가지고 건강한 아들을 가지게 되어서 굉장히 기뻐한 적이 있는데 그 일로 인해서 굉장히 이제 보람을 느꼈습니다.
I won't give a name, but the head of the lab had this quirk that he traveled a lot and loved to get himself upgraded to a first-class seat. And we were flying back from the American Society of Human Genetics meeting in Toronto to North Carolina, so that at least gives a little bit of it away. And we had to fly from Toronto to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to Atlanta, Atlanta to North Carolina. And at each stage, he tried to get himself upgraded, but that didn't happen because Herbalife had given all these free trips away to their people, and they were all first-class trips. So every time we tried to get on a plane, like from Toronto to Pittsburgh, there was Herbalife filling up the entire first-class section. Same thing, Pittsburgh to Atlanta, Herbalife had completely filled it up. Of course, Atlanta to Raleigh-Durham, there weren't a lot of those, so he got himself upgraded. And as we were sitting on the plane, the rest of us from his lab back in steerage, where the rest of us normally would sit, and him in first class, he looked at us like, oh, I'm so much better than you. I pulled a stewardess over to me and I said, listen, do me a favor, would you go up and tell him that there's a whole bunch of people with these Herbalife buttons on that want to take this flight, and he's going to have to leave first class. So she did it. She's a very attractive, tall blonde. Went up and told him this, and he sat down and went, no, I'm not moving. And she broke out laughing, and he looked around at me and I went, got ya. Well, it turned out she was the wife of a surgeon at this university's medical center, knew what kind of egos these people had, and she said, okay, as we were taxiing out, come on up. She sat us in first class right behind him, and he and a colleague and I, and as we were taking off, we go, oh, so this is what first class is like. And he just shrunk down the seat. Then the flight attendant provided everybody on the plane with free drinks. That's the ultimate prank that I pulled.
We goof off in the lab a lot. One of the probably dumbest pranks I ever actually pulled off was I made about 15 Eppendorf tube dry ice bombs and went to a faculty meeting that had been going on for a long time, and I was working for an associate dean at the time, and I knew he didn't want to be there and it was being dragged out. So we rolled the dry ice bombs under the door and they went off at different points in the faculty meeting, and then we went running down the hall only to realize it was 6:30 at night, and besides them, my friend and I were the only other two in the building. So we weren't going to get away with that.
Oh, something different that this, when we just started to run the lab in Brazil, one of the first cases that we received was a paternity test, and well, it was the first case, so the results obviously need to be very accurate. And in the first case, the test showed non-paternity, but also non-maternity. So we thought that we had the wrong results, and we did the test 20 times, and we got the same result, but then we decided to call the person and says, well, I'm sorry to tell you that, but we repeated the test 20 times, and it's showing that you're not the father, but it's also showing that she is not the mother. So the man was mad, but 10 days later he called us and said, when I told the woman that the result was this, she started to cry and saying that she always wanted to have a kid with me, but that kid was not her, actually. So she didn't understand that the test was also a maternity test. So this was kind of remarkable for the first test in the lab.
I think my favorite, which happens more than once, is to pour a gel, forget to put the combs in, and then you sit there with your samples. There's no place to put the sample. It's just agarose, nothing else.
but kind of cute things, like one of our, well, a group of summer students actually, were so happy with the, the 2 months experience they had, that they decided to take pictures of all of us, all the members of the lab, and take the heads, like the faces from the pictures, and make them angels and put them everywhere in the lab. So like posters everywhere. So, that was kind of cute. I never expected that everyone in the lab was like an angel. It was kind of nice.
When you make a gel, pour a gel into the coaster, so there are some blockers to either ends of the that coaster. So you pour the gel, and when the gel is solidified, and you remove those blockers from both ends, but they removed the combs. They forgot to remove the blockers from the both ends, and just they load their samples, put into the gel tank, and they were trying to run that gel, but unfortunately it was not running because both electrodes were working, but the current was not passing between in the gel. So they run it, and after 1 hour they came back and, oh, where are my DNA? I'm unable to see my bands. So fortunately I was there, and I just asked them, okay, what are you doing? So they told me, okay, we are trying to run a gel for our DNA. So after 1 hour I could not get my bands, So then I figured it out that they did not remove those blockers from both ends of the coaster. Then we removed and it ran. It was it was fun there. Yeah.
This is my second summer at NIH in the same lab with Dr. Menditti, and I was running a Western, and basically what happened is in the container where you put the gel and everything, the cord, I hadn't actually hooked it up to the voltage, I guess, source, and because there's another cord, and that's when I had plugged in, and it was there, and I'm like, what's going on? Why don't I see little bubbles? And I didn't understand what was going on. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't actually hook it up. So that was I laughed for a while about that. So yeah.
Funny story in the lab. I think this is more of an inside joke between me and my lab, but it was very funny actually. So the PCR tubes have these caps on them that you can like push open with your finger. So when you push it, you're supposed to open the whole thing, but I always struggled with it. So one day I pushed it and I broke the cap in half, which no one in our lab had ever did before. So they took the cap and they taped it to my desk, and they wrote under it, "Don't ever thumb wrestle with this girl because you will lose." So they just made a huge joke of it, which is embarrassing, but it was just funny. It made the whole experience fun because it happened the first week I was there.
Well, the funny thing, I was postdoctoral fellow in the University of Maryland at Baltimore, and well, we needed calibration of pipette aids, and we finally have it done after a laborious administrative work through the university. But something happened in the lab. I don't know, maybe we were too messy, because we opened the box, we checked that the pipette men were there. Effectively, yes, they were very nice, they were calibrated, but somebody somehow put it on top of the trash can. So minutes later, the trash collection service came and said, "Are we supposed to collect all the trash?" And we said, "Yes, of course." And there were the pipette men freshly repaired. So basically, we had maybe 3 hours or 4 hours of which we didn't even use it. We just barely looked in just to say how nice did they look. So I would say, never let's put anything on top of the trash can.